Before we move on with more drum mixing and balancing and all that, I wanted to do this module real quick to explain something. Really, any live instrument that's multi-mic'd, meaning you have more than one microphone working together to record one instrument. It could be a harp, it could be a drum set, it could be a string section, it can be horn section, it could be anything, a group of singers, right? What we always have to do with any of the drum stuff and how I like to do my drums, not everybody likes to do this, but if they're not recorded well, I absolutely do this. If they're recorded really well, I don't mind some microphone bleed. But for this track and for most tracks that aren't recorded that well, they just have a setup thrown up and nobody's really been engineering it heavily. What I do is, and what I expect to do through every session, is to clean up and strip all silence of any instrument that's not playing. Meaning hi-hats right here, the ride cymbal, all that stuff needs to be stripped, and we need to let the overhead and the room mics take over on those parts. So we don't run into a lot of washiness. We don't run into a lot of noise management and things being out of phase. So for example, on this part, what I'll do is I'll listen through the hi-hat and I'll find when the hi-hat's not playing. So right here, he goes to the ride. Right here, there's a little transition. And what I would do is I would go in here and edit out any part that the hi-hat's not playing. So that's a crash, right? So I would just grab that and I would strip out the silence and I'd fade. And the reason being is because I don't want the bleed of the snare drum, the kick drum, everything else in the kit to be playing through the hi-hat mic as well and having to deal with that. You get a lot more punchy, defined drums by cleaning up anything that's not playing. So I'll go through every track like that. Same thing, you got the ride. The ride isn't playing for a majority of the track. For example, here's the ride microphone. And listen to all this unnecessary microphone bleed that would be in our drums. There's no ride ever playing in any of that. So it's actually even pulling the kit placement over. We should get our kit placement, meaning we should get the center image of our snare drum, our kick drum, from the overheads and the room mics. And then we can tight mic the things that need to be tight mic'd, that play when they play, right? So again, if I start opening up these channels, you have tom close 1, tom close 2, right? Ride cymbal, you have a hi-hat cymbal or hi-hat mic that's when the hi-hat's not playing, it has all this noise. But here's 3 mics with nothing going on besides just noise of the kit. So imagine we have all 3 of these mics when the ride's not playing, the toms aren't playing. Let's mute these mics and let's pop them in and out while we listen to the overhead, the snare, all that stuff together. Now, the biggest issue also is that you're taking away from the stereo image of the kit. You're going to hear the stereo image change. Like you have this tight stereo imaging with the overheads and the close mics of the kick and the snare and the hi-hat. And then you throw in these toms and these rides that aren't doing anything but skewing the stereo image. It's blurring it. So listen to the definition and the placement of the hi-hat, the snare, the kick, all that stuff as I pop these in and out. Just a lot more skewed, and obviously it's bringing the level up, so don't let that trick you. Don't think, oh, it got louder, it sounds better. That's typically what we think, but listen more for the definition, the punch, and the transients, and how much they're getting washed out. So that's just a quick module for you guys to understand. You got to go through the process of editing. You have to go and strip all the silence. You need to make sure that if you are going to keep all the mics open, they're panned correctly and they're totally in phase with the overheads. The kick and the snare are in phase with the overheads. The tom mics are, the ride mics are. Everything's really tight, and your stereo image of your kit really makes sense because in this style of music, rock, punk rock, hardcore, anything, pop, funk, you know, that has live kit, the kit is the foundation, and it really is, it's the setting the stage for your record. So once you set the stage, like how big is the room? Are you in a studio room? How punchy? You know, like the drum sound depicts a lot of that. All right, let's move on.